Hey, welcome everybody. We're back with another episode of Scenes, Subplots, and Sidequests. It's your humble host, Joshua Awesome, here with my friend.
CJK, how's it going, y'all?
All right. We took a couple months off because there was some technical difficulties we were working on, and now we're back. And we are excited to be back to bring our thoughts and some of the TV shows, movies, games, and comic books and mangas that are coming out. So, it's been a lot. We've been gone for about a month and a half, something like that. I was in a move, and on top of that, my computer wasn't working. So we had to essentially put a little break until I was able to fix my computer, get all sorted out. But here we are. There was what, three big events? Well, two big events, right, Chris?
That is right. We got the Xbox showcase and the PlayStation showcase, which is pretty cool stuff that they talked about in those showcases.
Yeah, we're going to start out with some video game news. We are going to talk about the Xbox showcase. We're going to talk about PlayStation State of Play. We'll talk about the Nintendo Switch 2 launch, some TCG, trading card game news, and some of the games that we might be excited about through the announcements. So let's first go ahead and start out with the Xbox showcase. Xbox had a showcase recently. You can kind of tell their future, so to speak, because they're doing less hardware, not a new Xbox announcement or anything like that, other than the handheld. Now, the handheld's pretty cool on a lot of different ways because it can play PlayStation games, which is kind of wild, right? It can install Steam. Chris, when you saw the, Asus? When you saw the handheld Xbox, what did you think?
Dude, when I saw that new Xbox Ally, it was pretty darn cool. The fact that there's no more of this, you can only have PlayStation to play exclusives on PlayStation, get Steam, download it, and you're part of the gang who wants to play Spider-Man, potentially God of War, all those cool games. Super hyped about that.
Yeah, same. I love the handhelds. I started out with a Game Gear back in the day, and obviously got Nintendo. I think Nintendo Advance, Game Boy Advance was the first Game Boy I had. Everybody was playing Pokemon, and I had to get that. But I think before that, I had the purple transparent Game Boy Color. Was the first Game Boy I ever owned. So I've loved handhelds, and man, the Game Gear's 8 battery like crazy. Did you have any handhelds?
Yeah, I've actually started with the original Game Boy, and then eventually going to the Game Boy Color, the SP, and just like everybody else, I started with Pokemon Red or Blue. Games were phenomenal. I love handhelds. That's kind of why I like the original Switch. It's just really nice to have in your hand, and you can just play wherever you go. So with this new Xbox Ally, just taking something and going to work or going on a trip, super easy to play pretty much any game you want. So super excited for that handheld, man.
Yeah, I'm super stoked. It's a little pause from our podcast. I just checked to make sure our streams are working because, we've been having technical difficulties and they're both rocking. So I'm pretty happy.
Yeah. Me too, man. Me too.
Yeah, so the fact that you can also install, I like how Xbox is kind of abandoning Windows, if you will, and they are allowing Steam as to be installed onto the Ally, and essentially that means you can play Spider-Man on a Xbox console, or well, not really a console, but an Xbox themed device, which I think is pretty awesome.
Yeah, I do like the separation between Windows and a console. Just makes it to where it's available to everybody. And who's not excited for Spider-Man on Xbox or a Microsoft product?
Yeah, the only thing I don't like about those is my Steam Deck's fun to play on, but I wouldn't say it's the most comfortable experience. That's always the hard part about handhelds, is getting the comfort level right.
Yeah, because it looks like this Ally looks like an Xbox controller, which my hands are slightly larger than an average person. So hopefully those grips have a comfortable feeling to them when I hold one. So that's my hope.
Yeah, I can understand that feeling for sure. Now with the Xbox showcase, what game were you most excited about?
Oh man, that's a tough one. I had kind of a tie between two. The first one, if I had to go with, is Ninja Gaiden 4. I remember playing the
Oh
very
yeah.
first one on the original Xbox and even the demo on that one. And that was one of the hardest games I've ever played growing up because that's the first time where I've actually had a challenge and not something that's super easy. So seeing that they're continuing it on Xbox showcasing was a really nice delight that I saw.
Yeah, Ninja Gaiden was a game I played back in the day as well, and it was always really fun. I mean, I remember the 16-bit Ninja Gaiden was super
Mm,
difficult on Sega Genesis, or is that Shinobi? Either way, all those like 2D platformers back in the day were incredibly difficult.
oh yeah.
But I'm super excited about that. I am excited about Gears of War because I
Ooh.
don't know, Gears of War also has a place in my heart. It's a an amazing um like just franchise. I always if they made a Gears of War movie, I really hope they cast Batista as Marcus Phoenix because I think
Yeah.
that's like the perfect casting for him. And that's probably and I knew about that earlier too, because they sent me the discount code because I own like all the Gears
Oh,
of
that's
War. So I
right.
got the code. I'm like, what is this? And then I checked out State of Play and I'm like, oh yeah, that's like the gift they gave to everybody essentially. So I thought that was really cool as well. So I'm super excited about Gears of War. Are there any other games that you're excited about?
So there's two, and they're not necessarily like new games, but one's a remake and one's like a newer game. Final
Uh-huh.
Fantasy VII and Final Fantasy 16, which I remember playing Final Fantasy on the original PlayStation. So I'm super psyched to see it on, better graphics and just running a lot better. And then I haven't played 15 or 16 of Final Fantasy, but from the, gameplay that I saw from like people who've done it on YouTube and all that, it looks like to be a really fun game. And then that new Invincible Versus, that game looks freaking amazing.
Oh, let's talk about that a little later because I want to dive a little bit deeper into that because I'm also excited about that game. I am excited about. So I've played through Outer Worlds. I'm
Hmm.
excited about Outer Worlds 2, just because that game was pretty fun. I mean, it was kind of like it had the bones of that Fallout dystopia, which the
Yeah.
the studio that made that was one of the OG Fallout studios, if I remember correctly. Um,
Mm.
Tony Hawk Pro Skater. I mean, I'm excited about the soundtrack, probably most of all. But I played a lot of Tony Hawk growing up, so I'm excited that they're like revitalizing the franchise on that one. I think that's really cool. Gears of War,
Mhm.
obviously. Was it? I think Dreamwalker was the. Is that the vampire one? There was a vampire one that I'm just like, or is it Fate's End?
Um, it might be Fate's End because I think the one that you just mentioned wasn't vampire-ish, but I think it's Fate's End.
Yeah, I know there's a
Or
vampire game coming out
wait, I
as
think it might be
well.
the Blood of the Dawn Walker. That might be it.
Blood of the Dawn Walker. Yeah, yeah, that sounds vampire-ish. There's just a lot of vampire games out. It's not like it's a new thing, so it kind of depends on how they're gonna put their own spin and revitalization on that, like franchise.
Hmm.
um, Before I can really dive into it. The tough part about games nowadays is a lot of people can make a really good trailer, but that's not really indicative or a reflection of things like maybe the gameplay or the plot or anything like that. So it's tough. You can kind of go based off of maybe sequels like High on Life 2 is
Hmm.
probably going to be a funny action, an action comedy type of
Right.
game just based off of the first one. Um, and Outer Worlds 2, Gears of War Reloaded. Like some of those are coming from some developers who have made bangers before. So hopefully, like, they'll continue that. Now, is there anything that you were just disappointed in with the Xbox showcase?
Um, I wasn't too, disappointed. I would hope to have a little bit more continuation of like, I don't know. of a game or something like that, or just maybe a bigger like series. I was hoping for like either a game or something like that. Nothing like specific, but it just maybe just felt like it was missing something. I just don't know what that something is.
Right, like an Xbox Studios original. Well, they're not going to do that
Yeah.
anymore now that they've kind of they're kind of going all software strategy. So
Mm,
it's not going to be they'll release Xbox Studio games, but it'll never be like an exclusive type of thing. I
I
was
don't mind the.
disappointed.
Oh, go
I
ahead.
was disappointed in Fallout 76. Their fishing package. It's like, okay, we're kind of beating some dead horses here when you start adding fishing as your main feature. Now, fishing in the Fallout
Mhm.
universe could be crazy. You know, there could be a lot of like cool little mini game type stuff going on, but that was kind of a disappointment for me. I'd say a sleeper hit might be the solo leveling game. Just because while I'm
Yes.
disappointed that, and we'll probably talk about this later, disappointed that it won anime of the year. I understand why some would, because it's a great action, high impact type of show. But having read through the manga, I just don't think it has the narrative pull that a lot of other franchises have. So, as an action game, though, I'm stoked because that's probably going to
Mhm.
be a dope action game.
Oh, for sure. I think it's just going to be all adrenaline, kind of like a God of War, essentially, where it's just combat upon combat and just showing all those cool abilities from the anime. So I'm excited for that. Like, no joke.
Yeah. Now, hopping over to the PlayStation State of Play.
Hmm.
What did you think of the PlayStation State of Play?
I thought it was cool. One of the things I did like is I did play a little bit of that Astrobot on my brother's console. And the fact that they're adding new levels to that successful game, good news. I love that.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm excited for that. And then also the Ghost of Yote, super excited for that too.
Yeah, I mean, ninjas and samurais, they kind of always have my interest in
Hmm.
some sort of way. So I can understand that. I'd say the Marvel game, the Marvel 2D
Ooh,
fighting game, you know,
yeah.
the Capcom versus Marvel minus Capcom game,
Yep.
that looks amazing. I'm really excited about that. I'm also excited about the new 007 game because I mean,
Yeah.
you know, I'm like I grew up with GoldenEye as one of my main like franchises and what really got me into like shooting type games, right? It was one of the
Hmm.
first person shooters. With and it had like the analog stick on the N64 controller. So there was a lot of like things that were kind of going for it. And
Hmm.
I'm excited with that one because it looks like they're really trying to really embody being a spy, which is really cool. Like the tech, the action, the narrative. It looked like a really, really cool game.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of a little bit of like that Hitman series game where it's mainly like him being a spy. So I'm glad that they're, following that with 007. Give it that old
Yeah.
movies kind of feel to it.
I think it's going to do a good mix of that because I
Hmm.
mean, Hitman was all about assassinating, so it'll be interesting to see how how's that high speed chasing going to play out because they always have those, you
Right.
know. So
Oh, hmm.
what cars is being advertised this movie? You know, like
Right.
that's what I'm super stoked to see. But that Marvel game, it's a 4v4 fighting game, right?
Hmm.
So that's going to be interesting. That'll be something fun to play with the buddies. I just always had a problem with growing up, like it would, especially when it came to fighting games. Just some friends weren't at the same skill level as other friends,
Hmm.
and it made it less fun because, like, I mean, some people like whooping people's ass 24/7, but I like it to be competitive. So it was kind of like
Hmm.
I'll put certain challenges on myself. And then when I was in a band up near UMBC, like a college in Maryland at the time, and I met, you know, people who were kind of like gamers, and they brought the challenge. And then somebody
Hmm.
from back home who's just really good. Like my fighting game is Soul Calibur,
Oh yeah.
And I was a Mitsurugi player, and I got my butt whooped by this Astaroth player, and it's just like funny how that works out, like the mastery of like one character and stuff. So I'm interested to see how the combo dynamics work out with playing with 4 people.
Yeah, that'll definitely be really crazy to see. Because I mean, it kind of gives me a little bit of a Dragon Ball, the fighters game, kind of where you have like 3 characters and you can interchange between all of them, and they're each a little bit different from each other. So I'm excited to see that play with Marvel, but 4v4. But I also want some like characters they don't really introduce very much into games. You know, you always have like the Spider Man, the Venom, the Doom, the Iron Man. Maybe throw like Abomination in there, some like character we don't expect, you know?
Yeah, but the hard part about that is you're going to have the Hulk. So what place does Abomination have? How is that going to be different than the Hulk? That's the
That's
problem with
fair.
like having characters with like a shared power set, is
Mm,
that they will oftentimes only be able to have one role of that type of character.
that's fair.
You know, because it would be cool to have 3 Captain Americas, have Steve Rogers, have Sam Wilson, and have Bucky, and each of them have maybe different loadouts of moves. But then, like, why not just have Falcon as a character instead? You know, if you want a Captain America that can fly or has wings, why not just have Falcon? So I can
Mhm.
understand how that's a difficult thing to balance, not only like moveset wise, but character wise, but like personality and type wise, you know?
That's fair. That's fair.
I'm also interested to see if it's going to be like a tech and tag type thing where,
Mhm.
you know, like, are you going to have combo moves? Are you going to be able to do certain things together? Is it going to be just like having the characters, or is it going to be like true 4v4 where it's going to be like, you know, 4 players versus, or 4 players, 2 versus 2 type of deal?
Yeah, it'll definitely be interesting because I mean, like with 2v2, you could get like cool combo moves. Like
Yeah.
Iron Man hits his beam, and then Captain America just comes down and slams his shield or something. So hopefully they get some cool combos or just some interesting ways to tag people in.
Yeah, and then I was listening to somebody, and they were talking about how you couldn't do a DBZ style with Marvel, but they tried that. They tried that back in the day. I think with the PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, there was a 3D fighting game where you were on like just a battlefield, and you could jump around, Hulk smash type deal. It wasn't very good. It was not a good fighting game, in my opinion, and that's why I'm struggling to remember the name of the game. But they did try it. I think that that type of game is possible. It's just a 2D fighting game to me is honestly more fun than those like Naruto Ninja Storm type games. They're fun, like
Mhm.
I love the action bit and I love the combat, but like I don't know, when it comes to a fighting game, I like my fighting games to be very like balanced and structured. But I guess I'm not a pro fighting game person anymore. So I don't know.
Yeah, because I like this. I forget who said this quote, who I was watching on YouTube at one point, but he's like, if every character's broken, then nobody's broken.
Yeah, that's
So
Marvel
like,
Rivals. Yeah, Marvel Rivals kind of had that.
oh yeah, that's very similar, you're right? But yeah, like if all the characters have something that make them like unique and broken, then hopefully it'll make it a little bit more fun or a little bit more creative on the things you can do. So
Yeah, it's just a little bit different with a shooter because a shooter, there's moments of gameplay that can swing a battle, and that can totally happen on a fighting game. But generally, a fighting game's done once your health bar's done, right? So
mm,
with a shooter, it's more of a time limit or an objective limit, right? So it'll be interesting how they do things like the balance. I mean, there are people like with fighting games, there are people who study this stuff frame by frame and learn the
mhm.
characters whose frames are faster than the others, and they'll have an advantage because they'll hit first type of deal, you know? So it's a little different in the fighting game world to me.
Yeah, I've seen some people get a little bit crazy with that, especially with the controllers that they use. So makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, like a fighting game controller. Now
Hmm.
I'm always super psyched about Final Fantasy games, even though they let me down a lot of the times. But I mean, my favorite franchise, I don't think will come back unless Sega makes some crazy revamp of the Shining Force series, because I love Shining Force. It was kind of like a Breath of Fire-ish type of game before Breath of
Mhm.
Fire. That and or not Breath of Fire, Fire Emblem. Breath of
Oh
Fire is
yeah,
another game that I wish they would bring back. It's just basically about dragons, and you're like a dragon in most of the games. You're like a hidden
ooh,
dragon, and you
that's
get
sick.
dragon powers. And so it was always sick. I remember going on vacation and I played a Super Nintendo the entire time, and my parents were like, "Don't you want to go out?" I'm like, "No, I don't have this. This is like me going out. It's crazy. I've never played this console before, so I never had a Super Nintendo. I always had a Sega Genesis."
Okay, for sure.
Now, Ghosts of Yote you're talking about. I mean, the
Yeah.
Ghosts of they're making some cool games, and I'm excited about that. I'm excited about that and Metal Gear. But what are you most
Oh
excited
yeah.
about Ghosts of Yote?
I just love the whole samurai aesthetic, just being like, hey, I'm a samurai, I'm doing my thing for like the Shogun, or just redemption, Ronin type of deal. And that just always just sounds so cool, just being a single badass unit, just going around and doing what you want to do. So
Right? I
that's
wish
just
the
so fun.
I wish the samurai class in D&D was better.
Oh, bro, I that would be so cool.
It's just I don't like the class. The class is all about dying, and that's not what you want to do in D&D.
No, no. That's why you got to homebrew a little bit of stuff to make it a little bit better.
Yeah, I'm looking at trying to make my own version of a samurai and maybe call it Ronin, like you were talking about. Now, I never had a chance to play Astrobot, so you're excited about Astrobot. What's so fun about Astrobot?
It's just one of those fun little games where you just can kind of keep yourself really distracted, but there's a whole bunch of Easter eggs, like trophies from other of Sony's collect catalog of games, and it's just all around just really fun and addicting. Like you play one level and then you're like, yeah, I'll wait, and then you just play it again right away. So I just love that addictive nature of Astrobot.
Sure. Yeah. Is it kind of like was it Little Big Planet?
Kind of. It's kind of like I wouldn't say exactly. The vibe is very similar to Little Big Planet, where it's just, you're this little robot, you're traversing this, world
Platform.
2D
Yeah.
platform, and it's just really addicted. I mean, too bad I don't have a PlayStation, because if I did, I'd be playing that almost every day. But for that time I was playing, it was just really damn fun.
Now I've got mixed opinions about the Mortal Kombat Legacy
Hmm.
collection because man, they included the Game Gear games, they included the Game Boy games, and some of those are just not as like good. Not that they're not as good. They're just like, why have Mortal Kombat 2 Game Boy Edition when you have Mortal Kombat 2 set? Like it just seems like they should have just stuck with the numbered iterations, the best ones of each, and gone through there. So yeah, it's just interesting. I know that it's all supposed to also have online play, which is cool. But when you have that larger spread of games, are you going to be able to get like enough players to match up on Game Boy, OG, Black and White? Are you going to have enough players to launch it? That's the real question.
Yeah, I mean, kind of like a 50-50, like there could be, but they could also just do what some other people do. It's like autofill it with like bots, which that's never
Yeah.
fun. But it just shows them like, hey, we have people to play, until they get more people on, and then they'll take more of the bots away. But you never know.
Yeah. And then I think the only hardware they announced was the fight stick, which is cool, but kind of I don't know. I have there's so many fight sticks out there already. Is it do we need another fight stick?
Nah, I think just the few that we have are good. I don't think we need any more, unless you're like an avid collector. Then go for it, right?
Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, the state of play was that had some stuff in it. The Xbox Showcase had some stuff in it. Man, do I just miss G4, where you could just have all these things
Oh,
announced at once. You
dude.
know what I mean? It's kind of like well, each company has their own thing. Ubisoft's gonna have their own thing, EA, and you're just like, dude, it was better when they just took the cream of the crop and tried to like do that, you know? So it just, man, I miss those old gaming events where all the companies got together to release their stuff.
Yeah, I also love that G4 channel just talking about here's what you should know and don't worry
The
about the
E4, that was
rest.
it. Yeah.
Oh, E4.
Yeah, the show. Now you had some Pokemon trading card game news, yeah?
Yeah, so when we were getting ready for this, I was looking at a news article just talking about like how GameStop is increasing some of the prices of their Pokemon trading card set for, I believe it was Blooming Blossom, I forget, but they were increasing like $10 above market value. And I get a lot of people, and when I mean by people, by scalpers are buying them and like selling them at more ridiculous prices. But it's weird that that GameStop is trying to do this almost something similar, increasing the price. And sure, they want to get people into their stores and buy their product, but it just doesn't seem right to me. Just sell at the market price and go from there.
Yeah, I could see that, but also, I mean, with Pokemon being a Japanese property, like what I've read is that the tariffs are killing trading card games and tabletop
Mm,
games because a lot of the manufacturing for that gets done overseas. So I don't know how much of that is done because of tariffs, right? Because
right.
I think the only thing that's really scaled back when it comes to tariffs is electronic parts. So things like cardstock and figurines don't get affected the same way. They're not getting the cut. Those industries are going to be severely affected. And then Etsy's like pulling 3D printing from their stores, the Etsy
Oh,
store. Um, there's like some contingencies and guidelines around it, but like that means that a lot of like, even the little guys are having problems because Etsy's going to take away that could have actually been a really good thing for 3D printed material if you're putting in the work. If you're just like mass producing little dragons that can just pop off the build plate and you have like 130 printers, I feel like that's not who Etsy's trying to serve. But if you're trying to well, something I'd like to do is create content around D&D, and I would like to 3D print everything you would need to run like the Lost Mines of Fendelver. And like, off of those is maybe like giveaways or something like that. I think that would be pretty cool. A cool way for me to like serve a community and stuff like that and get people into D&D. But now that, we can talk a little bit off script because we didn't plan this, but now that Daggerheart's out, there's like another,
mhm.
I mean, there's Pathfinder, there's Daggerheart, but Pathfinder is so incredibly complicated. I don't want to roll a 19 and be like, oh, you miss, not a 19 plus stats, like a natural 19. You're like, oh, you crit failed. I'm like, I played
Whoa.
through Pathfinder Kingmaker, and when you play like, the harder modes, it's trying to emulate the tabletop. And let me tell you, if you're not building your character right, you're gonna miss. You're gonna fail a lot. You almost have to min max. You know what I mean? And
Mm.
that's what I like about Daggerheart is they're taking a different approach to the designing of the game and what is a failure, what is a success, and stuff like that, and how that like swings throughout the game. I need to pick it up because I'd love to like run a game and try it out.
Yeah, I've been watching Critical Role's Umbra series where they are playing on the new Daggerheart series. It's actually really cool. That way they have fear and hope. And it's like you don't fail like completely like in D&D. It's like fail with a flair or success with a little bit of flair. And I'm like, oh, you can still kind of succeed, but there's bad consequences, right?
Yeah.
So I do like that because it's not like, oh, you failed, you can't do it. It's like you fail or you kind of succeed, but there's consequences. So I
That
do like
I
that a
kind of
lot.
like to. So my first foray into tabletop was with World of Darkness, and they had a D10 system, and you would like set
Mm.
your difficulty as like you had to roll an 8. And basically, if you had to roll like an 8 to succeed on a strength test, the amount of dice you rolled was based off of your strength. So if you had 3
Oh,
strength, you rolled 3 dice. So you had 3 chances to roll that 8,
Oh,
right?
that's
And
crazy.
then if you roll like a crit, which is a 10, you can roll again. It like explodes.
Oh.
I think is like the terminology they use nowadays. So to explode and you roll it again. So there's a chance with 3 strength you get 5 successes. You roll like 5 eights in a row or something like that out of all your dice. But also failure is based off of how many fails you had. So if you rolled a 1 and you failed, then that's like one level of failure. But if you have two levels of failure, then you fail in even more spectacular fashion, right?
Hmm.
So there's those cool ways of kind of like determining success in a scale of not just binary, you do or you don't. It's like, well, you succeed, but how well do you really succeed? How well are you really? How bad do you really fail? You failed, but how bad do you really fail?
Yeah, which I really like. That gives the game a little bit more flair and a little bit more fun to it.
Now let's talk about the Invincible game because we were both excited about this because I've read through Invincible, and I've watched up to the most current season of Invincible, and I'm stoked about the game because there's a lot of possibilities with a game like this,
Oh, for sure.
and it looks violent. Which you would need in the tone of Invincible, but it also looks action packed and funny. So those are all the things that I want from an Invincible game.
Oh, for sure. I just like the fact that as you're playing around, like what I like a lot of games to do is like as you're playing, you show that battle damage, you show that blood, you show that the characters are actually fighting. And just
Oh
having
yeah.
that, it just makes it way more immersive, in my opinion, because you're like, okay, now I need to get serious. Now my character's looking a bit bruised and a bit bloody. And just having like more characters, like more Viltrumites and all that look really damn cool.
Yeah, I'm just excited to see if they're gonna, give us some Mark variants. If they might
Hmm.
have different move sets because of the way they were raised. Because I feel like that's something Robert Kirkman would do in a game like this. Because he himself said he was really excited about this game. So I'm wondering if like what his input was. If it was something like that where you're like, all right, like we have Mark from our world, but when we have Omni Man Mark, he's gonna have some Omni Man moves. If we have
Hmm.
Mohawk Mark, he's going to be a little bit more vicious. You know what I mean? So I'm hoping that there's going to be and hopefully we get some different variants of some other characters that we might not have been able to see. Like a souped up Rexplode or
Mm.
different versions of Adam Eve who unlock their powers and fight more brutally or more reserved or something like that.
Right. I think we were talking at one point where one character didn't get shown on the show, and it's like that dinosaur kid or dinosaur man. Like he would be cool to see in this game. You know what I mean? Just having a mouth of a T Rex and then horns of a Triceratops as his move set. That could be pretty funny, freaking cool.
Maybe spoiler alert for people. There may
Oh,
or may not be a dinosaur man coming up in
oh,
maybe the next arcs or so. Who knows? It could change because there's Damien Darkblood. It could go in a completely different fashion. Because I know the character you're talking about, and that character kind of serves a specific purpose. And I wonder if they're going to repurpose that with Damien Darkblood. And
ooh,
maybe I don't know if they'll replace this character because the character you're talking about's a pretty dope character, a pretty important character in the grand scheme of the Invincible timeline. So if they don't introduce that character, that'll be crazy because like how's that going to affect things? But that kind of
right.
segues into our next topic, which would be our manga and comics. Now, we don't have too much to say of this, but we do have a discussion that I'd want to talk about because our main topics, because we're going to talk about some books that we're reading probably on the next episode, because we have a lot of books that we're covering. Basically, when we got the comic book subscriptions for Marvel Unlimited and DC Comics, we started to be like, oh, what do we want to read? And then we got a list that was like 40 comics long, and then we're like, okay, we need to scale this back. So we started picking our favorites, which we'll talk about in our next episode. But things that have come out was the Naruto and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle crossover, which finished. which I thought was really cool. Have you kept up on it? I know I haven't read it, but I've read news about it.
I'm in a very similar scenario. I've read about it. I haven't actually read it. I just know a few tidbits of like some of the you know things that they discuss. Like, spoiler alert. Oh, let me just remind you that there is a pretty much scene where Naruto is doing a Rasengan that is like a if I remember correctly, kind of like a turtle shaped Rasengan. I forget the name off the top of my head,
It was
but it
silly.
is,
It was a silly name.
yeah, it was a really silly name, but it was really kind of cool. If I remember correctly, I'm trying to think. Oh, Half Shell Rasengan is the name.
I mean,
Which is just,
that is funny. That is funny.
and then the other cool thing is Shredder gets Sasuke's curse, turning him to like a demon-looking thing, which was also pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah. I like that aspect of a lot of the crossovers where you get art that's different or character amalgamations, which is really cool. I mean, that's what I loved about the Amalgam project back with Marvel and DC. I don't know if you know about that, but Marvel and DC collaborated and
Yep.
combined certain characters like Captain America and Superman,
Yep.
Wolverine and Batman.
Logan
You
Wayne,
know,
man.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So there was a lot of like interesting things that came about, and the character designs were really cool. I love the
Oh yeah.
character designs. And then we have a possible Batman Deadpool crossover.
Yeah,
Grant
man.
Morrison is in the works of a crossover between Batman and Deadpool because he's written both books. And that's where you're like, man, those two are tonally so different that I'm not sure how clashing those together is going to work out.
There are very similar to like characters that Batman has dealt with that are very Deadpool-esque, and not like in the same person, but like you would take Deathstroke, who's just, the original Deadpool, and then you would take the insanity of Joker and you would combine it, and that would be, pretty close to being a Deadpool.
Yeah,
So I could see Batman not only having a hard time, but also just like, what am I fighting? Because he can heal from everything, but he's also a really proficient fighter and using arsenal that is just crazy with great marksmanship. So I feel like Batman will have a tough time at first, but then eventually kind of get used to Deadpool shortly after.
yeah, and like, would Batman break the fourth wall in a joking way to just keep up with Deadpool's insanity? Where maybe as the audience, you feel like he's not really talking to us, but he's placating Deadpool. You know what I mean? So that could be an interesting
Yeah.
dynamic. But what do you think of crossovers in general? Like these mixes? Because sometimes I like it, but then I look at Doctor Who and Magic the Gathering, and I'm like, no, 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 no. Keep my Doctor Who separate and keep my Magic the Gathering separate. I don't like those two entities together. But I think of Magic and Lord of the Rings, and I'm like, well, that's acceptable. And you know what I mean? Like I'm iffy on some of these crossovers because like is it done well? Is it done right? Does it stick to the tone? Does it stick to the characters, the plot? Like everything has to really come together in a way for me to really like crossovers.
I'm kind of in the same vein. As long as the crossover makes sense, I don't mind. For example, the Naruto and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, right? They're both essentially ninjas. One's in New York and one's in a fictional world.
Yeah, and
But
they're like kids shows. Well, like they're shown in age. Like even the Ninja
yeah,
Turtles, the comics not so much, but the TV shows have always been for like young boys, young girls to get into like action and stuff. And that's kind of like the same thing with Naruto. They make sense. And then like, crossovers within worlds always make sense. I feel like Invincible, teaming up with Savage Dragon would make a lot of sense. Or any Marvel team up, any DC team up. I mean, I guess those are less crossovers and more team ups.
yeah.
But yeah, are they respecting both sides of the material? I think is the important part.
Yeah, as long as they pay homage to and they kind of consistent with the rules of like each character's like lore, kind of like in Mortal Kombat, like when they had like I forget which Mortal Kombat it is, but they had Kratos from God of War. I'm like, okay, that makes sense why he would come to Mortal Kombat to kill gods or godlike beings, right?
Yeah,
To me, that kind of makes a little bit of sense. So as long as there's like that consistent rule that all the characters follow, like, oh, this is how you got here, kind of makes sense, but you're still you. I feel like
yeah,
that's kind of acceptable, you know?
yeah, yeah. Let's go ahead and we've done crossovers. Let's talk about our anime, TV, and movies. We kind of lumped them all together. But there's some things that are being rehashed. One I really enjoy because as a shortening of Joshua Awesome, I also will go by Jossum. And when I worked for chat support, if you got a message by a dude named Josh and he told you to reset your Apple ID and he was like, Jossum, good job. That was me. I use Jossum as a little like thing in my chat, just to be like, can I sneak in old 90s slang and people get it? But Street Sharks is making a surprise return after 20 years, which I thought was really cool, as is King of the Hill is getting revived. So that's a little different. A revival is apparently it's set in the future of the King of the Hill world. And we get to see, Bobby as an adult, Hank in a new job, and all that. What do you think of some of these revival shows, King of the Hill specifically and Street Sharks?
Well, starting off with King of the Hill, I did like the original, King of the Hill. I sell propane and propane accessories. Such a good,
Damn it,
quote
Bobby.
and show. Damn it, Bobby's always a good one. Or, I don't know you and kicks him right in the crotch. Always fun. And, as long as they stay true to the characters and come up with interesting narratives, like in the trailer, if none of you have seen it, just kind of a heads up that Bobby's potentially a professional chef or a cook, I should say more accurately, and he's talking to his dad like, hey, how about you let me try cooking on the grill? And Hank being Hank, he's like, no son, this is my thing, you need to step away, true to
Yeah.
Hank's character. So seeing that does give me a little bit of good promise to the show. So as long as they keep that good, then I feel like we'll be okay.
Yeah, I think I mean, some unfortunate, deaths within the voice cast are going to have some different voice actors or people possibly written out of the show. But from the previews, I'm pretty stoked. It's a cool, I mean, South Park did a whole bit on member berries. And man, these got the member berries, you know what I mean? And as long as they do it right, I'm down. I'm down.
Oh, yeah.
And one of my favorite things is getting a TV show and has made a step forward, which is a Mass Effect TV show. Have you ever played Mass Effect, Chris?
Yeah, it's been a while since I played the Mass Effect series, but some of it still kind of lives up here. But really good, solid 3 games. And I remember the third one being really unique among the series and having different endings, which to me, when I first played it, was like, holy crap, this is crazy.
Yeah, essentially they got producers and writers, so it's moving forward in a good way, which I'm hoping for. There's a lot of times where these projects move forward, but they don't move forward fast enough. They lose some of the talent they had. Like I remember the original Why the Last Man project, which was done up through Hulu, was supposed to be Shia LaBeouf. No. Yeah, no. I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be Shia LaBeouf after in that Transformers era of Shia LaBeouf. So when he was kind of like still like, clean shaven and young and stuff like that. And that had a lot of promise. And that was one of my favorite comic book series at the time. And I haven't watched the TV show because I just went through such production turmoil that I wasn't exactly sure if they'd nail it. So I just decided to skip it entirely. Because it is at a certain point, there's like some tough writing that they're gonna have to like get through, some tough plot points and narratives and stuff like that, I think. But with those step forwards, there's some step forwards in a new Wonder Woman movie confirmed by James Gunn, Batman Part 2, and then the Netflix Tadum recap. Uh, what did you think of the Tadum and like the possibility of a new Batman and Wonder Woman movie?
I'm excited for both because the first Batman movie, even though it was a little bit lengthy for my personal taste, it was all around a really good movie.
Yeah.
After giving it some thought and letting your opinion tuck through and rewatching again, I was like, this is seem a little bit more grounded Batman, him learning to be an actual detective rather than a crime fighting, ask questions last after I beat the crap out of you. So after looking it through another lens, it does seem to be pretty exciting for the part two. But also Wonder Woman, the very first Wonder Woman movie from DC, that was a really solid one. Second one, not so much. But with James Gunn handling it, I have a lot of faith because seeing how the new Superman trailers look, I'm like super hyped for the new Wonder
Yeah.
Woman, even though it hasn't came out yet. So, I'm giving it high hopes at least.
Yeah. I mean, I'm super stoked about it as well because I mean, James Gunn did such a good job with Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm hoping he really captures the heart of the characters, right? The essence of these characters.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think sometimes the plot gets lost. And I think that's why they're going to do a Batman Part 2. Because, like you said, it is a grounded Batman, but Batman is part of the greatest, a line of detective comics. That's what he is. With the Robins, there's a whole Robin that's defined by Batman's detective abilities in Tim Drake, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm excited about that. And I'm excited to see where he takes Wonder Woman because the first Wonder Woman movie was good. The second one was kind of,
Eh.
I don't know how much executives had in maybe changing the original vision of that movie, but I will say it was clunky. It didn't hit as hard. I feel like, man, maybe they should have did the the Cord one where they kind of like out Wonder Woman in the modern era. They should. I don't think they should have stuck with different eras, but the modern era Wonder Woman, and she's kind of like she's a warrior, so she's not adverse to killing.
Yeah.
Like if they made that type of Wonder Woman who like is maybe about to kill somebody, and maybe Batfleck Batman is like it's like no, this isn't you, and then like murders Ted Cord anyway.
Yeah.
The only way to break because like he's already there. The OMAC project could have been part of it. Like
Mhm.
there's a lot of ways they could have really defined Wonder Woman, and I don't think 1984 was the best. That was the tagline, right? Wonder Woman 1984 or
Yeah, it
and
was something
whatever,
like
the
that.
1980s Wonder Woman. But what'd you think of Tadam? Because they had the sneak peek of Chopper in One Piece.
Yeah, honestly, when I, first watched that before, we decided to talk about it, at first I was worried because, Chopper is a very unique character in One Piece. He has, spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't seen too much of One Piece, he does get like some potential transformations. So seeing him like as he is was
A
not
shonen
bad.
anime with
Um,
transformations? Whoa, that's crazy. I can't believe you spoiled that for everybody.
bro, just wait. No, I'm just kidding. But his voice actor was pretty good. I felt like that voice matched Chopper pretty well for an English voice actor, and his design was solid. I have no problem with it. I'm just excited to see how he does with the other characters being fully animated, and see how well it goes.
Now, not gonna lie, I've been on a One Piece like sabbatical for a couple years now. When they started the Wano arc, however you pronounce it, is essentially when I stopped reading, and I was like, oh, I'll come back to it. And then like 200 chapters later, you're like, oh shit, there's a lot. That is a
Mhm.
lot for me to try and come back to, right? But I'm gonna make the effort to do that for everybody soon. But with it to dumb, also on top of that, I'm really excited about Stranger Things. I want that
Mhm.
series to have a good conclusion and end. But man, they came back with the Happy Gilmore, more member
Yeah.
berries for especially my age people. So,
Hmm.
and it looks like it's a good premise. It's a classic Adam Sandler, and Adam Sandler's good at those heartfelt movies, I think. He's got a
Hmm.
lot of like really good, like heartfelt acting moments, and he's changed as an actor. So I'm interested to see how well that goes.
Yeah, I hope they keep the comedy, the spirit of Happy Gilmore, which made him Happy Gilmore, and then just add that new Adam Sandler, acting to it. You know, it was just overall a decent surprise, and the trailer looks like it'll be pretty good. So, you know, we'll see what happens. Funny thing though, that movie drops the same time as Fantastic Four drops, July 25th. Just a heads up.
Oh, interesting, interesting. Well, I mean, I'm gonna go see Fantastic Four first for sure. I want to see how it all ties in. I think maybe they should kind of like they should have used the multiverse thing to be like, hey, let's peer into another MCU, and that
Oh
could have
yeah.
been the X-Men, you know. But I'm interested to see how they're gonna tie X-Men into Fantastic Four, or like how this soft launch of X-Men is gonna be. Um, we have two big topics to cover still. One is our Thunderbolts reaction. And the other was, should Solo Leveling be anime of the year? But I think we only have time for one. So, Chris, I'm gonna throw the ball to you and ask you which one you want to cover.
I'm more passionate about the moment because it's like a burning fire in me. Solo Leveling as the anime of the year.
All right. Well, give me your thoughts. I'm gonna adjust my chair so I can sit.
All right. Personally, I don't think Solo Leveling should have won Anime of the Year because one, people were confusing and Solo Leveling season 2 for the nomination when it was season 1. Don't get me wrong, season 1 was good, but it wasn't amazing. Like it was kind of okay, right? Like a 7 out of 10. I think who should have won Anime of the Year was Freewind Beyond the Journey, and after looking into it and a whole bunch of researching, it looks like a lot of people were incentivized to say Solo Leveling should be anime of the year from, people up top, which is a little unfortunate. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I partially agree. I don't know if Free Ren should have won it, but I think that between Free Ren and Apothecary Diaries, they had like Apothecary Diaries has different types of fights. They're
Oh yeah.
political, they're calculated, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like Solo Leveling is kind of like not overhyped. I mean, it's hype, dude. It's a hype. Like the action sequences within that show are top notch. The visuals are top notch, but there are shows that combine better narrative and plot and story than I think Solo Leveling. And when you think of anime of the year, like I think Solo Leveling could have won fight scenes of the year, visuals of the year, hype moments of the year, stuff like that. But I think that both Free Ren and Apothecary Diaries are just better written shows. Right? Like,
Oh
what are
yeah.
we celebrating here? Are we celebrating just big booms and fancy flashes and power ups? Or are we going with like plot and subtext and emotional resonance within a series and stuff? Like when I think of like my like D&D games,
Mm-hmm.
I would be bored with a solo leveling type of campaign because where am I going? What am I doing? There needs to be like fun alternatives, I think. And it feels like Free Ren is like a D&D campaign where you have like these little side quests where you're like, oh, we're going to travel back to the land of the dead so I can talk to
Mm-hmm.
my former dead adventuring party. And all on the way there's like, oh well, we had to kill this demon that I promised to kill 100 years ago because the seal's gonna break and we need to break the seal. Or you meet another elf that's a millennia old, if not older than Free Ren, and then you're
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, he called Free Ren young, you know what I mean? Like
Right.
there's so much within those animes. And to me, I only remember the fight scenes in Solo Leveling. I don't remember big character moments because I think a problem too is like, it's like when you play a game, you have to work and earn the ability to be a badass, right? where it feels like they established him as a badass within the first like 10 episodes. And I've read the manga. He's pretty much going to be a badass nearly the entire way. But
Yeah.
right, like there's like maybe one or two struggles that happen, or one or two. I mean, there's some reveals for sure that happen, but man, it's not like emotionally impactful. Like Free Ren's brought me to tears on
Oh,
multiple occasions. You know what
dude,
I
those
mean?
first 3 episodes really ripped my heart out, man. That was sad.
Yeah, yeah, dude. And then, I mean, even then, I rewatched some of them, and I'm like, damn, Himmel's the goat, dude. Himmel's the
Oh,
goat.
100%.
The entire party's the goat. The Dirty Priest is
Mhm.
a goat. Yeah, and
Dude,
I've also read up to the current manga, right? So I
yep.
also know there's going to be a big arc that's going to freak everybody out. I feel like, and
Hmm.
like when I think about that, I think about like, man, I can't wait to feel those emotions when I watch that. Whereas with Solo Leveling, I'm like, I can't wait to watch those fights, and
Yep.
that's what it like
Yep.
comes down to. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because I mean, like, season 2 ended with one of the biggest fight scenes in the entire series. And obviously, they gave more animation and more fight time in the actual show than the manga. Because I think in the manga, or manga, whatever you call it, it only lasted like 10 pages where he won. And, it's like, oh, I can't wait for this fight to be animated. So, like, to your point, it's all about the fights, but there's not much, development or plot, just
Yeah.
badass.
And I think, they talk about like Jinwoo just aura farms, but man, I think like Ren fought a demon named Aura, and the way she killed that
Oh,
fight
yeah.
turned out is the biggest Aura farm I've ever seen. You just look at that and you're like, damn, perspective, dude, perspective. Because like to us, the
Yeah.
viewer, we're like, oh, Ren's so sweet, but she's like lived 1,000 years and has killed the Demon King. So we're getting this post-retirement Ren who's collecting grimoires, and we
Yep.
forget that she was like a badass. I mean, she isn't. We know she's a badass mage, but it wasn't until like the end arcs where you're just like, oh shit! Like, spoiler alert: the end boss is Free Ren. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Dude,
yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I just love Freeman because she's just really racist to demons. She's just like, nah, you're gone. Boom, you're dead. And God, there's that whole little thing where that demon gets adopted in that human village, and she just ends his life after that whole demon causes a scene. I'm like, damn, she's just fucking cold.
Did she or did Himmel?
Well, Himmel was holding the child. Oh, I think no
I
wait.
think Himmel ended up
Himmel ended up
cutting.
agreeing with Freeman, and then I
Yeah,
think
and then
Himmel cut him.
yeah. Well, yeah, and the thing is, like, I don't know how the plot's gonna go forward, but I feel as though they're teasing the demons, like they're kind of like they just have never felt emotion, so they don't know how to process it or what it is. But I feel like they're getting emotion, if that makes sense, and that might change. But free range just know demons as they are, and they
Yeah.
are deceitful.
Yep.
They are going to use like if you're using a hard stop D&D terminology, all demons are evil, whether they're chaotic evil, neutral evil, or lawful evil. That's like up to you. But like Free Ren is like neutral good, in my opinion. She is like she'll do what is necessary for good. Um, she might need to break some human laws. I think she would have no
Hmm.
problem with that if she needed to, but she does work within the confines of the laws and whatnot. But she knows without a shadow of a doubt that demons are evil.
Yeah, because I like her like analogy. She's like, demons will use words to trick humanity and deceive them. So we'll use magic to deceive the demons and like they do to humans. And I'm like, that is so cool and poetic. Use their
Oh
own game
yeah.
against them.
And when Flom was just like they like humans use wealth as status and to show your power and nobility, whereas demons use mana and magic. And you're like, oh, I like using that as like a different thing to measure your place in society other than money, because that's such a human thing, right? So they kept
Yep.
that as a human thing, but like what a demon's value. And that makes me think, it's like, what do elves value, right? Because like
Mm-hmm.
Siri, the three L's within Freyren, Siri, Craft, and Freyren that we've met are all so different with different
Oh
values.
yeah,
One's like a holy man who maybe like had
a
walked with the
monk.
god that
Yeah.
they worship. You know what I mean? He's like Freyren 1,000 years later,
Yep.
right? Where he was part of a hero's party, but it's been so long that he's kind of forgotten. And then we have like Freyren, who he cares for humanity, and is like starting to understand humanity way better by walking among them. And then you have Siri,
Yeah.
who also cares about humanity in a weirder way. I don't want to say weird, but in a different way, because she doesn't remember their faces, but she remembers their spells. If you caught that, she knows all
Mhm.
their favorite spells and stuff like that. And she also, so Freerin has the Field of Flowers, but also Siri has the Field of Flowers in her like chamber when she's doing the judgment, right?
Yep.
So she like lambasted Flam, but at the same time cared for her a great deal, but would never say it. But through her actions, show it. And that's why freaking Freerin, and we haven't talked much about Apothecary Diaries, but it has the same type of emotional hits
Oh yeah.
that Freerin does. I wouldn't like just you have to really
Mhm.
analyze, I think, Apothecary Diaries. It doesn't really spell it out for you in the same
Mhm.
way that the other shows do. But man, all those just, I remember the shiny booms of Solo Leveling, and that's pretty much about it.
Yeah, pretty much. So I don't think it should have won, but here we are. Here are my opinions about it. So, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Well, hey, man, I think we're at the end of our time here. So, if for anybody listening, thank you so much for listening to two nerds just rant out. That's pretty much what the podcast is. We talk about the cool shit that we heard about the week, the cool things that we love. So tune in next week as we will be getting back to a more regular-ish schedule. I know, some of us work retail, some of us are helping out family and whatnot. So we're definitely committed to a Wednesday time frame. We just don't know if we're going to be sticking to the same time. We're going to record when we can. So just see when we're live and join us.
Oh yeah.
Awesome. Well, hey, this is Joshua Awesome, out.
The CKJ out.